Here, I started it. Now you see if you can do a little bit longer. I say to you, I have times on a night like that, each time on an end of a rock. Lord gives, and sadly, sometimes Lord takes. Well, there's an that being brought close first. We're gonna do several stop. Bring it out and hold it for a second, and we'll do one on the way, one on the floor. It's great out. Please note that there are no hints. They have everybody. Go shave the secretary on what social I even on a lot on my team that I feel. I have done it's county park every never about ever tell you said talking about that so around the meet gotcha. So Tirani Park had Lila met you come out me never about for your love because the issue so right me promise the power for me not laugh oh gosh. You come like now that beach to mark a change to yeah, Tanai Maxio Young Sound Samona, Holotonella, Hara, Hello, Negaloy Crop, Walla, Hakima, Kavitzvella, Fishmore, Kotraka, Alcapimus Sounds, Plenty Go, Pavan Raglaka, Al Shak of a Fetin, Tirdok, Timos, Kirtanin, Evi Kashak, Apate, Waskavik, Yadashimi, Ukraini, Venehu, Imo, Anopi, Visara, Akatse, Viakadeu, or Akamimas Piahu, Viareu, Shuati. Or Akamimas Piahu, Viareu, Shuati. Okay. Proper, thank you. Ask the non-mourners to come behind the chairs. So, perfect. Yeah, it's fine. The program.
Now, the immediate mourners, please take seats. Our service is about to begin. Mrs. Sondra Bernfield, I'm going to ask if you have a cellular device to please turn it to the off position. Officiating our service today will be Rabbi Michael Schwab of North Suburban Synagogue, Bethel.
Sondra's memory, I'm going to recite Psalm 15. It speaks about a person of deep integrity and kindness. And that's two of the many things that she certainly was. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai mi'agor ba'olech, amishkon b'har kodechecha, olech tamim u'foal tzedek v'do'aver emet bilvavo, lo ragal al eshbono, lo asal re'ora v'cherpa lo nasal krovo, nivzeh be'inav nimas, yet yirei Adonai yechabed, nishba la'arav v'lo yamir, kaspo lo natan b'neshpech, v'shochad al nakila lakach, ose ele lo yimot le'olam. In English, Psalm of David. Do we deserve to enter into God's sanctuary? Can we merit a place in the presence of God? Live with integrity. Do what is right. Speak the truth. Have no slander on your tongue. Do no evil to others. Do not mistreat your neighbor. Spurn those who are contemptible. Honor those who revere God. Never retract a promise once made, though it may bring you harm. Lend no money at unfair rates. Accept no bribe against the innocent. Make these deeds your own, then you shall stand firm. forever. Sondra Bernfield's memory will always stand firm forever. It's traditional recite Psalm 23 at the graveside, which I'm going to do. Afterwards, we can read it together if you'd like to join me in the English. It's inside your service folder. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo achsar, binotesh v'yar bitzeni, al me menuchot nahaleni, nafshi yeshovev, yancheni v'magle tzedek leman shemo, gam ki elech begeit sal mavet, lo ira ra ki atai madihi, shivtecha mishan techa hema yenachamuni, taroch lefanai shochan neged tzorai, dishanta v'ashemen roshi kol sirevaya, October chesed yudefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti b'veit Adonai leorech yamim. If you'd like to join me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest the table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. There was a great Jewish philosopher, his name was Ben Sira, and he wrote something about parents. When parents who have taught their children pass on, that passing is not a true death, as long as the child lives, and all the more so as grandchildren and great-grandchildren. There's a part of that person that can never, ever die. When alive, a parent rejoices with her children. In death, that parent does not grieve, for she knows that her legacy will be handed down, l'dor vador, from one generation to the next. So, as many of you know, Glenn, Sandy's husband, is on live stream and certainly with us today, but not in person. But he did share some words with Ari, who helped transcribe it for him and turn it into a eulogy that between the two of them they composed out of his words and his ideas. And he asked me to read it for you. So these are Glenn's words. Sandy and I were married for 68 years. We met at a party at the Nautilus Hotel in Miami Beach, Florida. After we left the party, the men decided to go to a movie, but I said, "You guys are nuts. I'm going back to that party to see that girl." We spent the next 10 days together, and I remember seeing the movie Love is a Many Splendored Thing, which became our song. After that, I went to a convention and she went home. We stayed in touch, though, and I was later invited for dinner at her place to meet her parents, for which I was 3 hours late. But I would ultimately become good friends with them. Sandy got her master's degree in special ed. Then she worked in the master's program at Northeastern University, teaching children with learning disabilities. From there, she went to Bethel Synagogue, our synagogue, and started the Halom Dim program for children with learning disabilities. She would later become vice president of education at Bethel, and she also became the director of development at Spertus College. She went on to do many other things in her life. She opened up a store called Yarn Yard in Highland Park with her partner Eleanor, and together they taught people how to knit and formed an international knitting club. She was also a weaver, and her weavings were on display for the World's Fair in Toledo, Spain. She made talesim, one of which was made for me. She made and wore all her gowns for the kids' weddings. She also made blankets for her grandchildren, each one unique to the individual. She was even asked to do a woven charm for the White House Christmas tree. She met President and Mrs. Clinton in that way, and incidentally, she snuck me in too. Her creativity was something she was proud of. She and her partner, Judy Charlock, were also in the antique business. They went to antique shops all over the area and bought and sold antiques. They weren't always in it for the money, and they certainly had fun doing it. Judy's husband, Ronald Charlock, and I helped them out with this. We went to many special places together. We took driving trips with the children and went up and down the country seeing the United States. Acapulco was one special place for us in our lives. We would go there every year for vacation. We also enjoyed many trips to the house we had in Galena. Family and friends would enjoy visits there as well, and it was a basis for many, many happy memories. In 2006, we bought our home in Tucson, which would become a new place central to our family. We were also big fans of the Olympics, which...
Sondra Bernfield, a life woven together with love. In Brooklyn, New York, November 13th, 1935, Sondra Bake was born and began to thrive. To Harry, her father, and Rebecca, her mother, she was adored by them and by Seymour, her brother. They were a happy family whose days were so sweet, but until Arlene finally came along, their family was not complete. Sondra was a happy child who was well educated, her heritage important, tradition critical to those to whom she was related. In summer 1955, while on break from Brooklyn College, she caught the eye of Glenn, whose beauty he acknowledged. In Miami Beach at the Nautilus Hotel, she caught his attention, and he thought she was swell. He thought he'd be the coolest guy in town if he could win over the beauty in the crinoline gown. They spent 10 days together in the Sunshine State, quickly realizing that they could be one another's lifelong mate. She returned to New York and he to the land of Lincoln, but just 10 days later, he attended a conference in New York, met her parents. What were they thinking? It must have gone beautifully, and no one was enraged because early the next summer, the two got engaged. In Silver Springs, Maryland, where his sister Marlene was living, he invited Sandy to visit for an engagement ring he was giving. On June 23rd, 1957, the two of them wed and drove on their honeymoon destination, Colorado's Pikes Peak. I'm sure Glenn sped. Then they returned to Chicago to set up their lives. They lived on Spalding near Bryn Mawr, both avenues, not drives. Sandy finished school at Roosevelt College, becoming a teacher for all to acknowledge. Glenn attended law school at Northwestern and became a JD. The two of them thought they had it all and filled them with glee. But just 2 years later, almost to the day, their first child, Jeffrey Blair, came their way. Just 21 months later, a new brother made them a family of 4, and they welcomed Craig Michael, a son they'd adore. In 1962, after moving the family to Morton Grove, they added again to their family trove. Lisa was born, adding some joy by providing a little sister for the 2 growing boys. In 1968, once moved to Highland Park, Sandy did not sit quiet. She began entertaining and prepared dishes that today are still part of her family's diet. What did she learn how to cook, serve, and to bake? Soy vase lathered skirt steaks were a favorite, as well as Deerfield Bakery's Queen Liz cakes. Gatherings were her forte. She loved to entertain, always preparing far more food than necessary so no one would go hungry or complain. She also became a prolific collector of antique salts as well as a weaver extraordinaire. The displays of her open salts and pillows in her home are beyond compare. Her salts were so treasured, but often drew cackles because she loved salt so much, she changed her email address and became known by the name Knackles, sodium chloride or salts. Her weaving so skilled that she also designed and created a tallit for each of the men in her family. When each one received was elated. Her talent so accomplished, she made history by having been requested by the president to make an ornament for the White House Christmas tree. And how about the Yarn Yard, her beloved yarn store, where she was the owner-operator? She taught classes, designed sweaters, and sold skeins of yarn galore. There was also a love of the sporting kind. The Cubs, the Bears, and the Olympics come to mind. She attended 4 Olympics, a gold medal feat, LA, Montreal, Barcelona, Atlanta. She found it so neat. A travel passion was something she and Glenn relished, with treasures from Mexico, Africa, Egypt, Israel, Europe, and the Western U.S. her house was embellished. And then there's Galena, another treasured place to go with her children and grandchildren would visit in tow. The main street was filled with treasure, the candy kitchen, poopsies, canovas, and more, along with the territory's beauty and calmness and the muffins at the general store. Can't forget about her love for music, one of her favorite things. Frank Sinatra made her swoon from the way that he sings. And although she herself couldn't always hold a key, we all remember her teaching, You're Adorable, to our children with pride and reverie. So many memories of this special woman woven through our days. We can't forget her love for the four-legged family members who've also benefited from her affection in so many ways. All treasured memories of and with Sandy, mom, grandma, great-grandma, woven together with love from this earth, as told by her husband every Friday night at candlelight. A woman far above rubies is and always will be her worth. Today, please take comfort. You'd be delighted to see the friends and their family from your whole family tree. A fitting and reverent gathering of your incredible legacy, all woven together, representing your life's tapestry.
As our ancient ancestors traveled from Egypt to Israel after the Exodus, they actually undertook one of the most sacred artistic enterprises in Jewish history, the building of the Mishkan, or the Holy Tabernacle, that was to provide a home for God's presence in the midst of the Israelite community. To take on this project was neither a priest nor a prophet, but a master artist was chosen, a craftsman named Bezalel. Using his artistic talents and the talents of his fellow community members, he oversaw the creation of a beautiful space with inspiring decorations filled with beautiful sacred objects that would be the spiritual center for the newly freed Israelite people. His work was considered both a machshir mitzvah, creating the means for others to fulfill the commandments, and hidur mitzvah, beautifying the performance of the commandments. Bezalel and his fellow artists therefore created both the tools and the environment to uplift an entire community. Today we come to celebrate the life of another wonderful Jewish artist and an all-around mensch of a person, Sondra or Sandy Bernfield. Sandy was a ray of light, creative, warm, full of love. She brought beauty to every person with whom she interacted and to every space she ever entered. She was a master craftsperson herself, specializing in knitting and fabric work and weaving. And she was a purveyor of beauty, collecting, buying, and selling. She herself was beautiful, but most importantly, she had a beautiful soul that made everyone feel cared for and that impelled her to be a source of great strength, comfort, and love for every single person that she knew. Therefore, it is my very sad honor to offer my condolences and those of our community at North Suburban Bethel, to her wonderful family, of course, to her soulmate Glenn, and to her loving children, Jeff and Gwen, Craig and Donna, and to Lisa, and her beloved grandchildren, Jordan and Deanna, Laura, Jamie and Seth, Sari and Jacob, Raina and Ari, and to her cherished great-grandchildren, Matilda and Jet, and of course to her adored sister, Arlene. And to all of her family and friends, whether you're here, you're on live stream, or you can't be with us, my prayer is that the words we shared and the traditions we observe provide some measure of comfort at a difficult time. So much has already been shared, but I do want to highlight some thoughts and memories from a really wonderful conversation that I had with the family last night. And I'm going to try to incorporate a lot of their different memories and thoughts and feelings. But I'm sure I'll miss some, and that's what Shiva's for and the rest of your lives, to tell these stories. Sandy's sister, Arlene, said that since Sandy was young, she was always a person that wanted the best for everyone, and she would always do whatever she could to help you whenever you needed. This was her character from the start. So as her sister, 11 years younger, Arlene always felt supported and encouraged and loved by Sandy at every single stage of her life. Arlene distinctly remembered that when she graduated high school in New York, she had gotten into the University of Chicago, which was a great accomplishment, and she was pressured to accept this. But she didn't want to go because she was in a relationship with a man that she felt that she loved. Sandy, with love, wisdom, and encouragement, supported her decision, told her to trust herself, and that man became her husband for over 40 years. No regrets. That was how Sandy was, wise and loving. Now, you heard the story from Glenn of how they met. The family reinforced that Glenn was so in love with her and that his face lit up whenever she walked into a room. They had a beautiful relationship and supported each other through some very tough times. I know Glenn is listening, and my heart goes out to you, but also know that love is stronger than death, and her love will always be with you. As a mother, and as you heard from Lisa, her children shared that she was incredible. She was always available and full of love and support at every turn and at every stage of life. And she somehow did this while working as a professional, both as a teacher and as an artist. They called her the quintessential Jewish mother, making delicious food, always how everyone liked it, and enough for armies so that their friends were always welcome in their home. And she just loved having family around. She was the glue that kept the extended family together, including trips back to the East Coast and hosting people as much as she could here. And as a mother-in-law, she was a second mom. She welcomed her children's spouses and created wonderful relationships. Donna shared last night that for her, Sandy was an example for all of us in how to lead our lives. She is grateful to be considered part of this family, and everyone agrees that she was a strong, powerful force for kindness and a source of great light for the entire family. And that was especially true for her grandchildren, who shared that they associate the word love with her, that she was the embodiment of family togetherness. And they all knew she would do anything for any of them. They recalled that when Sandy discovered that they liked a certain food, she would always make it for them, just as they liked it, every time that they came over. They remember the long conversations with their grandparents on the phone or in the conversation pit, knowing that they were just so happy to be engaged with them and learning about their lives because they loved you all so much. They loved all their trips with Sandy and Glenn and going into antique stores with her and finding what she wanted. Many attribute their love of traveling to their grandparents, and many stories they would tell based on their travels and extensive mementos, which Sandy so carefully collected. The family recalled how organized and meticulous she was about planning these trips, including handwritten files with research and itineraries. She loved it, and she put her love into planning those details. All of the grandchildren loved going to the house in Galena and eating ridiculous amounts of food, playing games, and just spending time together. They loved that Sandy would ask them to pick out a fabric so she could make something for them, a sweater, a blanket, or I'm told even a dress. And every special moment was acknowledged by her, including she and Glenn singing happy birthday to each family member on their special day, whether live or on their voicemail. They were second parents in many ways for the grandchildren, and Sandy was home base, a foundation of love and support for every grandchild, always seeing the very best in them and helping them to reach their potential. And she was also thrilled to have two great grandchildren. And somehow, even though they are both young and she had advanced Parkinson's, she made a great impact on them. I was told that Jet talks about great grandma Sandy all the time and that they enjoyed reading together and even sharing some whipped cream right from the can. She loved them very much. Jewishly, Sandy was very engaged. She created the Jewish atmosphere in their home, making every holiday special with wonderful meals and home observances. And the family also went to synagogue services, walking on Shabbat and holidays as is traditional. As Glenn noted, she was very involved in the educational side at Bethel, our synagogue, starting the Halom Dim program, which we still have today, and becoming a vice president of the synagogue board. She was active in sisterhood and other activities of the congregation as well. She and Glenn took the family to Israel, which was also important to her. She will definitely be missed at Bethel and by the entire Jewish community. Sandy was so many things. I think that poem captured a lot of those. She was an artist and creator, creating important and beautiful things, just like Bezalel when he created the Holy Tabernacle. She was a brilliant educator, a deep compassion for those with special learning needs. She was an engaged Jew who passed on the traditions to the generations of her family, and she served the greater Jewish community. She was a lover of all living things, especially animals. She appreciated the beauty of the world, traveling, collecting, learning, and sharing. She was strong and resilient, somehow a dedicated professional, and an amazing mother, wife, sister, grandma, great grandma, and relative who was always there for everyone else. She was someone who fought quietly through her Parkinson's and other health setbacks in her life, never letting it keep her from doing the things she wanted to do and from being with family, perhaps best illustrated by making that wedding in Italy and walking down the aisle just as she said she would, despite how hard it was. She was strong. And most of all, she was a woman full of love who dedicated her life to supporting others and made a real impact on so many, most especially her family. Tihi zichra brucha, may the memory of Sondra Bernfield, Zlata bat Chaim Tzvi v'Chaya Bela, always be for a blessing, and let all of us say, Amen. Now I'm going to ask our friends on the cemetery staff to lower the casket. As the casket is lowered, I'm going to recite from Psalm 121. I'll do it in both Hebrew and in English. Shir lamalot, Esai nai larim me'ayin yavo Ezri, Ezri me'im Adonai, Oseh shamayim va'aretz, Ayitein lamot raglecha al yanum shomrecha, Hine lo yanum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael, Adonai shomrecha Adonai tzilcha yad yaminecha, Yomam hashemesh lo yakeka v'yareach balayla, Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra, Yishmor et nafshecha, Adonai yishmor tzidcha uvoecha, me'ata v'yad olam. Song for Ascents. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from God, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. The guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your protection, a guardian at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. God will guard you from all harm and guard your life. God guards your going and your coming, now and forevermore. Amakoma tavo v'shalom. May Sondra Bernfield go to God in peace. Amen. Oops. In a moment before the vault cover is placed, I'm going to add Israeli earth in between the casket and the vault. There's already some inside the casket. The Israeli earth symbolizes Sandy's eternal connection to the people of Israel and the land of Israel. As the vault cover is being prepared to be lowered, I'm going to read from a prayer called Siduk Hadin, which describes the righteousness of God, even at a time when we question God's judgment. Atzur tamim polo ki chol derachav mishpat elamuna ve'navel tzadik v'yashar hu. Atzur tamim b'chol poal miyomar lamati falas belit v'mata v'mal v'mida mechayem urit shol v'ya'al. Atzur tamim b'chol masa miyomar lamata aseh omer ve'aseh chesed chinam lanu taseh v'zchut ha'ne'ekad kisak shiva v'asei. Sadik b'chol rachav atzor tamim, erech ha'payim ha'malei rachamim chamon avachus na'alval tuvanim, hilachad on aslichot v'rachamim. Sadik atad Adonai lamid alacha yorat biadcha tikton kol ruchot, chalila lecha zichron elim chov v'yunayinech v'rachamim alenu fibuchot, hilachad on arachamim v'aslichot. Adamim ben shana yeh alev shnem yichya, ma yitron lo kol yeh baruch dayan hamet, memid mechayeh. Baruch hu ki amatino meshotet hakol beino meshalem l'adam cheshbono v'dino, v'hakol yishmo dayayitenu. Yadanu Adonai ki tzedek mishpatecha titzdak bidvarecha v'tizke b'shovtecha, ve'en la'aher achar midat shovtecha tzedik atah Adonai, v'yashar mishpatecha. Dayan emet shofet tzedek v'yemet, baruch dayan hamet shekol mishpatev tzedek v'yemet. Nefesh kol chai b'yadecha, tzedek malai yaminecha, v'chem ha'peitat tzon yadecha, v'tomar l'malach heref yadecha. Gadol ha'itzav v'rav ha'aliyah, asher einecha pekuchok, ol kol derechei v'nei adam, Latit li shlichid rachav yifrimel, lav lagid ki asher Adonai tzuri, v'lo avata bo. Natan v'adonai lakach yihishem, Adonai mevarav, v'rachum yechaper v'on v'lo yashchid, v'yirba l'ashiva po, v'yir kol chamato. Perfect rock, whose work we perceive reveals, faithful God, true, upright, and honest. The rock is unfathomable, but just and patient, and filled with compassion. And you are just, God, in the giving and in the taking. Your hand is the essence of our spirit. You would never permit that impact to fade. We know, God, that your discretion is beyond us. We know, God, that your word is good. Your judgments at times puzzle us. And though we may brood over harsh realities, we place our trust in your righteousness. We accept our loss and the love that will remain with us forever. Have mercy upon us and strengthen us to maintain our courage. Adonai Natan, the Lord has given. Adonai Lakach, the Lord has taken. Yehi Shem Adonai Mevarach, praise be the name of God. Ve'ashov ha'afar al aretz k'shaya v'ruach tashuv el Elohim asher natana. The dust may return to earth as it was, but the spirit returns to God who gave it. May Sandy Bernfield's soul be bound up in the bond of life eternal. Send comfort, God, to those who mourn. Grant strength to those whose burden is sorrow. And let us all say amen. And now I'm going to ask those seated if you're able to stand, so please stand. I'm going to recite the memorial prayer, and afterwards, we're going to recite the mourner's Kaddish. El Malei Rachamim, Shochen Bamromim, Hametzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Ashchina, V'malot Kedoshim Utorim Kazor Rakia Masirim Et Nishmat, V'lata Bat Chaim Tzvi, V'chaya Bela Shalcha Le'olama, V'gan Eden Tzei Menuchata, Anabal Rachamim Astirei V'seiter Kanafecha Le'olamim, V'utzror B'tzror Chaim Et Nishmata, Adonai Nacholata, V'tanuch B'shalom Amishkava V'nomar Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure, to the soul of Zlata, Bat Chaim Tzvi, V'chaya Bela, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. May she rest in peace. And let us all say, Amen. Now I'm going to ask the family to join me in the words of the mourner's Kaddish. It's in your service folder. Yitzkadal v'yitzkadash shemei rabbah ve'alma divra chirutei ve'amlich malchutei v'chaye echon v'vyom echon v'chaye dechol beit Yisrael v'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lalmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudusha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechamata tamiran be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav Hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May Sondra Bernfield's memory always be for a blessing, and may her life inspire future good deeds on our own. It is the Jewish custom that we, her community of family and friends, help to put her to her final rest, and therefore it's our custom to participate in the burial. So I'm going to ask everybody to participate if they can. There are a few customs, if you'd like to observe them, that the rabbis came up with to make this more meaningful. One is that you should do at least 3 shovelfuls, so something significant. Second, is that you shouldn't hand the shovel to the next person like you're in a hurry. You just put the shovel back in the earth. You can hold it there so it doesn't fall down for the next person. And the third one, some people have the custom of in the first shovelful, instead of doing it the normal way, you turn the blade upside down and push a little bit in, because you'd never do that in a normal act of shoveling, and it reminds us that this is a mitzvah. So I'm going to ask the immediate family to come. Please be very careful around the graveside. There's 2 sides, 2 shovels, and please participate, and everybody else can follow after them.
Push a little like that. It's only a little bit.
Mhm.
It's about.
Let you know. That's
Some folks can come around to this side.
I'll do it if you can. Not like that. Just that's one. The sacred thing. Everybody wants to know. So the extremes. Okay, that's something that's fine. Perfect. 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 Okay, perfect. Perfect against her. Okay, right. Anybody else who is willing to participate, please step forward. Sorry. Friends, I want to let everybody know that from 4 to 7 today at the Bernfield residence, 1755 Overland Trail, Shiva will take place. I want to also let you know that those of you who are present, if you'd like to go to the 1755 Overland Trail address after the interment is concluded, you're more than welcome. This will be Tuesday and Wednesday from 4 to 7. Memorial contributions could be made to the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. For those of you who are present, that information is located on your service folder. Those of you who are online, that information is available on our website. Family should know no more sorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, you could do it now. That's fair.
On a time, gonna help get the people. So
I want to say something. Okay.
I'm just saying, we'll want to.
Right. Well, the way you. Right. Yeah. Sir, are you waiting or?
Anybody else waiting? Oh. Oh. I. Okay. Or sit up with the. Or chop. I think that's yes. They're gonna put together the grants open and make sure they're. Yeah. So if everybody wants to process over. That's the plan. Sacred ones. Yes, I feel so blessed. Like it's fascinating.
Yeah, so. I think the key to making the yes, of the keeping life. So I was saying, in the past now, it's past 30 minutes. As well to stick to cover with more of any like my team participate. For the price where
My family.
yeah. And but like stable the audio. Whatever you want. I'm sorry. Wow. Yeah, whatever you.
You must have been good on that. I don't know. I don't feel it. Friends, I want to invite you to participate if you would like to, please. You do not have to limit yourself to 3. We're going to try to make a nice layer over. Same thing, correct.
It's like that, right? Yeah, it's regular cell.
Here you go.
I get a layer. Like that. Try to fill in on the sides and over the top so that we can't see the bolts. And pass it on to the next person. I'll say something else. I just like.